Class is in session, Hitting the Books, college basketball edition of Hitting the Books. Friday, November 15th, Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you. This is the place to be for college basketball. Hitting the Books every Friday. We'll be with you at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. For the rest of this current calendar year, we'll go at once a week every Friday. And then when we get into the new year, we will get into more shows per week once football starts to close shop for the year, college football, that is. So, but for now, we'll give you one college basketball show a week here on Fridays. And looking forward to talking about this Friday slate because there's actually some good games. We will begin talking about TCU and Michigan. What we'll do is we'll talk about a handful of the bigger marquee games, and then Connor and I will give our bets on the rest of the games, and then best bets at the end. We'll keep it to 30 minutes, get in, get out type of format. All right, we got TCU, Michigan. Michigan 6-point home favorites. The total in this one currently sitting at 153. Dusty May, of course, did a great job at FAU. Now the head coach of this Michigan Wolverines team taking over this program. You like what you've seen from Michigan, but when I look at this matchup here, this is going to be their first big test of the year. And, TCU has had some ups. They've had some downs, had a lot of inconsistencies as far as the way they have played so far this season. But to me, TCU is a pretty quality team still. I was surprised Michigan was an 8.5 point favorite. Look, I know TCU's had some games where they haven't exactly looked clean and they haven't looked their best and dominant. But you look at the particular matchup here, I think it's a situation where if you look at TCU, they're a very good defensive team. In fact, a little bit better on that end of the basketball court than Michigan. They've got a lot of good experience coming back as far as, when you look at players like Noah Reynolds, for instance, senior, Frankie Collins, senior. These are guys that can go on the road and get the job done in tough environments. Thought the point was just too many points initially, and I agree with the move toward TCU here, getting the points as road dogs. What do you think here, C-Mac, TCU, Michigan?
Yeah, and it's come back to basically 6 everywhere. There's a few 6.5. Even when it got to the 8, or so, 8 now, I'm like, man, this gets more. I would have to take it here with TCU because I'd rather still take Jamie Dixon. I'd rather have that coach and TCU and a little bit of their defense than this Michigan team that's still unproven here a little bit. Michigan, I think a little bit better offensively with what they have with Burnett, Golden, Galen, etc. So they're at home here, but one thing until I start seeing it, Michigan, even at home, of course, this team's different every year, just hasn't been very good and profitable over the last few years for the most part, laying points. So this was a pass. I lean heavy to TCU, and maybe I should have grabbed the 8 to see if they can hang around. Their wins too, against Texas State, Florida Gulf Coast didn't look, great, but it's so early in the year. It's tough to go off of with TCU.
Yeah, no question about that. Early in the season, there's going to be some variance in the results for certain teams. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that one plays out. Florida State. We got the Florida Gators, 5-point road favorites, 158 the total. I agree with the over push. There's probably going to be points. Florida State will push the ball. Florida definitely will. They played extremely fast pace, really last year too, when Todd Golden arrived as the head coach from San Francisco. He's always played that kind of style. I think you're going to see both teams get up and down the court. That's definitely what I prefer in this game is the over rather than a side. I mean, Florida's definitely the better team. I considered laying the points, but this is a rivalry. Leonard Hamilton's team. We'll see which one shows up because sometimes the defense doesn't show up. Sometimes they're just the shooting can go off, all of us off the rails, if you will. Never know what you're going to quite get from them, but what you always get usually is athleticism and length from Florida State. We'll see if that's good enough to keep them competitive. I like the over more than anything. How about you, C-Mac, in this little rivalry battle here, Gators, Seminoles?
Yeah, I'd like to get on Florida State. In the end, I just couldn't do it. They're this team to me still. I don't know what we're gonna get. Down here, they're just still sloppy with the ball, turnovers. They're not a great shooting team. Florida State. Even against Tarleton, they're 45%, but from 3, 4-21, 24 from 38, 63% from the charity stripe. If they don't get, that, they're not going to cover. Now, if they're a little bit better and shoot it, I think they can hang around. Florida definitely has the better team here, at least the scores in this game with Clayton and a few others. I was trying to look up. Okay, I'll wait on that if he's going to play. But, yeah, it's tough. And Golden, this whole thing, I don't know, at some point it gets everything that's going on with him, They already play these games. It's just a weird story. And the news doesn't look good for him, really, if you look at the stuff. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not a distraction. They're fine right now. For sure, I'm not going to lay points with Florida on the road right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even with a better team, I can't do it. So, and it was just I just couldn't get there with Florida State. Just not a great team, not play great team defense, and they're sloppy. So, as much as I want to take them, I laid off.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's a tricky ask with Florida. They haven't looked good in some of these games. I remember that Jacksonville game. I know they ended up winning, but that was a performance where it was just not pretty for 40 minutes and capable of probably opening that up more than they did. And there's a lot of turnovers too at times from Florida, and they get just a little happy. It's almost like they're playing too fast at times, and then they get careless and reckless and treat the basketball like a hand grenade. That's not what you want from a team laying points on the road. That is for sure. All right, Alabama and Purdue, one of the marquee games. 3.5 on the road. That's right. Mackey Arena, everyone talks about how feared this home court is, and here's Purdue, a very rare home underdog here, 164.5 to total. That being said, I think it's warranted. Purdue's been a team that I've not been impressed so far. They've had some games where they struggled against some very weak competition. Alabama has looked solid. I know they've been pushed in a couple of their games too. McNeese State gave them a game. Arkansas State gave them a game. But remember, Arkansas State's first of all, Arkansas State's a good Sun Belt team this year. I really think so. They're going to contend in that conference. And the other thing is the guy that's the head coach of Arkansas State was an assistant under Nate Oates at Alabama before. So I think Alabama kind of takes it easy on Arkansas State. That's his old assistant, doesn't want to make him look bad. So that's why that game was maybe more competitive. But now I think you get Alabama focused. This is a team with, obviously, they've been here, they've done that. Now on the road last year, they didn't always play their best, but I think they learned from some of these growing pains. They've got the experience. They should be able to handle this environment. When you talk about Mark Sears and Clifford Amaruyi, Grant Nelson, Latrell Wrightsell, Diabate. I mean, they have got a ton of experience now, this Bama team, that I think they can handle these kind of environments. I think they will tonight. But the thing is, when I bet it this morning, Alabama was like a 1-point road favorite, and I got -120 on the money line with Alabama. Now it's 3.5. So I'm a little bit leery about the best of the value is gone now with Alabama. But I do think they're favored here for a reason. They're the better team. I think they win. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I like the other way here. I'm on Purdue plus 3.5. I want them here at home.
I think you kind of have to lean that way now that it's up to 3. 3.5 is pretty rich now in Alabama. I will admit that.
Yeah, I bet it here. Alabama, more talent for sure. Better guards with Sears, like you mentioned about. I love that guy. Took in a ton of his props, and he should be good. They just rely on the 3 a little bit too much. Both these teams haven't been, looked great early on. I took McNeese. They covered. I had Yale against Purdue. They covered the last game. But there should be plenty of points in this one, I think. And the tougher team at home here is Purdue, I think. Still the better rebounding team. Even with Zach Edey gone, they still have the size, the blocks. I think they're in this unless Alabama shoots the lights out. You know what I mean? That happens. They go wild from 3, but I don't think that happens. I'll take Smith, Kaufman, Wren, Lawyer, Harris, all these guys at home here, plus the 3.5.
All right, there we go. Head to head, Connor and I. Alabama for me, although Alabama had a better number for me than this. Very important to point that out. I think of this number, there is definitely a little value on Purdue. For me, it's very important that someone can't be Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith all the time. That to me, they're 2-trick ponies.
That's true.
You stop Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, you stop Purdue. And Purdue doesn't have much of a chance if you contain those two guys. Now, it's easier said than done, but they're going to need some of the supporting cast to be a little bit more efficient and better than they've been at times. And that's the key for tonight here for Alabama, that if you at least keep those two in check, you're going to give yourself a good chance here in this one. The total's high, but, Alabama, we know, plays lightning fast, and they're lethal offensively. So if the efficiency's there, they could even make that total look small. All right, SMU and Butler. We've got SMU. Here's another one where don't be tricked into taking the home team. You've got SMU 1.5-point road favorites. The total 156. I get it. Hinkle Fieldhouse. Butler is a home dog. Got to take Butler, right? I think Butler stinks right now, quite honestly. I don't think they're very good. We've seen them look terrible in some of these games, just go in droughts offensively. Defense has been ripped. How are you getting ripped by some of these, like Austin Peay, for example, coming in there and just ripping you apart on the defensive end of the court? I'm impressed with SMU. Very, very impressed with what I've seen. I think they've recruited well. I think they got some big-time talent. They're very experienced. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this SMU basketball team here early in the season. Even though I'm not the biggest Andy Enfield fan, of course, he's now the head coach here coming over from USC. I think they're rightful favorites. I think they're just flat out better, and they can do enough to win this game. I think this is an over, too. SMU playing light, fast-paced, Butler zero defense. But they can score a little bit. Butler offensively has been good enough to put points in. So I like the over here, and I like the SMU side, the slight road favorites. What do you think here, C-Mac, SMU, Butler?
Yeah, I lean SMU. I think they're the better team. The whole thing, first, really true road game at Hinkle, where Butler, I think, can play better. SMU is playing lightning fast, and they're efficient. And I love these guys. This team's deep. I was talking about it earlier with Miller, Cross. They have some guys that shooting, and they've been playing super fast early on. But I take that as kind of who they played. And I think Butler, who shot the ball great that last game, isn't going to shoot like that again. They only shot 50% from three. This team was a dead under for me a ton, especially at the end of the year. That last game just went over, though, against Western Michigan. And I don't trust them to really score. I think they play a little bit better at home. I have the under here, under 156.
All right, there we go. So we're head-to-head on the side in the Bama game. We're head-to-head on the total in this game. I like it. All right, next up, we've got, as we continue along here, let's go down to Virginia Tech and Penn State. We've got Penn State 7.5-point favorites, 150.5 the total. This one I lean to the favorite, too. I mean, Penn State's look good. Virginia Tech, and I'm a big Mike Young fan. I always have. Did a great job at Wofford, but I don't know. I feel his tenure has not gone over quite well as I thought here at Virginia Tech. They continue to have some issues in terms of depth. They've always been a thin type of team, lacking, quality in their bench unit. If the starters don't play well, they get into some trouble a lot of the time. Like I said, the eye test tells me I'm way more impressed with Penn State right now. And the way they've played so far this season. By the way, there's a bunch of these games that are on the Peacock streaming service. Arizona, Wisconsin, Alabama, Purdue. This game, it's on the Peacock streaming service. So just be aware of that if you're trying to watch this game in particular. But I'm interested a little. I got a better number on Penn State. It's up there now at 7.5. But I don't know. What I've seen out of Virginia Tech, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. And I'll buy into Penn State here a little bit. What do you think here, Connor?
I kind of like Penn State. I think it's gone a little bit too far, especially here. This is on a neutral.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is on the neutral. That is a little bit why I could have. But I think Penn State definitely has the better scoring team here, the offense with Ball Johnson. These guys can shoot. Virginia Tech, Poteet, these guys, it's just – sometimes they just don't score. We saw it with the Winthrop game. Winthrop covered there. They were getting 8 or 9. I liked them in that spot, 58-52. Penn State, I don't think has the best defense. If they shoot well, I think Virginia Tech can hang around, especially at 7.5 now. I kind of lean that way as right away. I thought when I saw this at 6, I'm like, maybe Penn State. But, I think maybe Virginia Tech can hang around here. So I lean 7.5.
All right, lean to the 7.5, mostly with the number climbing as high as it has in that game. All right, Marquette and Maryland here. We got Maryland 2-point home favorites, 146.5 the total. Now, this one's a little tougher. I do think I like Marquette long term as the better team here, and the idea of getting them +2 is appealing. Maryland is a tough place, though, and a home court where they've played well over the years, and so I'm lukewarm here on Marquette. I don't love it, but I do think I like. There's parts of this team. I don't think they're falling off without Kolek as much as people think, or Odoro. They lost those two key players from last year, but I think they've done a nice job, filling the void with Shaka's team. And I think this, I thought this game could have been pick'em. You're getting a bucket now with Marquette. They're going to push pace. They're going to push tempo. And what I think that's very key here is they're shooting a lot of threes this year. They're 15th in the country in three-point shooting rate. And Maryland's been giving up the three-point ball a little bit early on. So that matchup, the perimeter game of Marquette, I think might be enough to tilt the game in their favor. But again, I was hoping for a few more points than 2. Maryland is a decent home court. So I lean Marquette. Nothing super strong, though. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, this was a tough one for me just because I think Marquette, even with you guys talked about those guys out, maybe a little bit better team, but Maryland always at home is solid. When I see this number, it's moved up. Like, I kind of lean under. I hadn't bet it just because Maryland plays these games at home a little bit different than they do away and on a neutral floor. And as good as I think they're solid defensive teams, through the years, and they struggle to shoot it. Even at home, they can get hot at times. I've seen it, but man, they can go on some droughts, and they need that against Marquette. So I thought the number was a little bit high, so I leaned under here.
All right, there you go. Under the total here for C-Mac with this one. How about the Battle of Georgia? Georgia Bulldogs, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. We see this every year, the final week of the college football regular season, these two teams. We're going to see the basketball version, though, tonight. Georgia, 2.5-point road favorites, 156 the total. I mean, I'll tell you what. These two coaches, Mike White and Amari Stoudemire, neither of them are the second coming of John Wooden, from a coaching standpoint. I'm not the biggest fan of either of them, but one thing about Stoudemire and Georgia Tech, and this even goes back to when Pastner was the head coach there a few years ago. You get him as a home dog. You get him against a team you don't think they're quite as good against, and that's when they rise up and they get you, and they sting you, no pun intended, like a Yellow Jacket does. I'm leaning Tech here, +2.5 in this game. This just feels like that typical Georgia Tech performance at home, like they do in ACC play. Duke rolls in, they beat Duke. North Carolina rolls in, they beat North Carolina on this home floor. I do think Georgia's a little bit of a better team this year, and Georgia Tech's had some kind of ugly games. We saw them scuffle quite a bit, in some of these games, struggle to win by margin against these lesser teams. But these are the games they seem to get their best. So I kind of like Georgia Tech here. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, they just seem to rise up, especially, if you get them in these spots in conference play. And they should be up for this, but kind of as a rivalry, and I haven't bet it, but I lean to the over. And it's kind of a right because, I mean, so far this year, these teams just don't play defense. No. Georgia Tech, really, and Georgia, they've both been playing at a quick pace for the most part. Georgia Tech, too, common opponent, they lost to North Florida, and Georgia just beat them, didn't cover, lost by 13. No. So this game should be good. This one was tough. This was just one I am not on, and I thought the total. If this was a little bit lower, I would have been on the over. I just thought it was a few points too high, so just lean over here.
Yeah, I do have the over actually as well, but a smaller bet on it. But I thought, you're going to get pace, and I don't trust either team defensively. All right, basketball's version of the backyard brawl. Next up, West Virginia and Pitt. We've got Pitt 7.5-point home favorites, 148 the total in this game. West Virginia, they beat UMass. I think UMass. Well, UMass didn't look good against. I don't know what happened to UMass the other night against Louisiana Tech at home. But my goodness, that was a good performance. But I'm not going to hold that against West Virginia. They played very well against that same UMass team at home. I love the hire. Darian DeVries, great coach at Drake, did a great job with Drake all these years. They were always one of the better teams in the Missouri Valley. He brings his kid with him, who's a hell of a player, Tucker DeVries. As well with him to West Virginia, father and son. I like the moves, obviously a tough situation with Huggy Bear, Bob Huggins, and the whole, situation with him kind of forced out of the program. But nevertheless, I think they made a nice hire. I'm tempted to take the points with the Mounties in this game. It's a rivalry game. I know Pitt, is probably the better squad here. There's lots to like about the way they've played, but I think West Virginia is good enough to hang on the road, rivalry setting. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think so too. Here at 7, I think it's just too many points, and they can hang around. Nothing. I think Pitt's better this year, and I think they've looked solid. But I don't know if they cruise here and win by over 8. I thought there's definitely some value here with West Virginia and 2 teams. I was on UMass. They cover that game there. Yeah, and that was a horrible game. Thank God I didn't play them the next game against La Tech. But I think this should be good. Pittsburgh, I think, can get theirs. And I want to see a little bit more how these teams just are. Some of their shooting, some of their defense. I still don't think Pitt's a great shooting team. We'll see if that turns around, if they have some shooters. Leggett's all right. He had a pretty good game last time. And let's see if they have a decent bench. They've been playing 8 or 9 guys. Let's see if they can continue, at least have some depth for Pitt. But yeah, I think West Virginia can hang around +7.
All right, next up. Now, this is not right on campus. It's in Iowa, but it's kind of like it's Carver Hawkeye Arena for this one. It's still obviously a semi-home game for Iowa, but not a true on-campus game. Washington State and Iowa here. We've got the Hawkeyes 5.5-point favorites, 170. And look at this total, 170.5. But you understand why that is when you factor in pace. And obviously, we've talked about this for years. Fran McCaffrey's team will never be known as a defensive juggernaut. They just won't. I mean, that's just the way. They just look to outscore you in every game. So I understand why this total is as high as it is right here. This is on Big Ten Network, this game. Top 80 teams in pace. So you understand why this total is very high. Washington State has the better defensive efficiency numbers, though, going into this game. And I like Wazoo here, +5.5. You have to give them credit for what they did to Bradley. Bradley's a really good mid-major. Bradley is probably going to win the Missouri Valley. They at least are favored to. And Washington State beat the hell out of them. Pounded the piss out of Bradley. And Bradley's a really good team. Bradley rebounded the other night and blew out UTSA at home. That's a very good win for Washington State. I like the hire of David Riley. Comes from a winning program in Eastern Washington to take over. I don't think they lose. It's a tough loss. Kyle Smith's a hell of a coach, and they lost him. But I think David Riley's no slouch. I think they made a nice hire. And I got no problem fading Iowa's favorites with that defense, which doesn't show up half the time. Give me Wazoo here, +5.5. I think they can handle this and keep this competitive. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, especially, I mean, this went to 6, even 6.5. Oh, it's finally just came back in 5.5s everywhere. So I think if you got that, you don't mind it. And one thing I can't really get on, if this was at home, I was going to be on Iowa. This is one of those little tournaments. I forget the name of this one. And I couldn't do it, not on a neutral, because I thought them at home, which I don't love covering numbers with their defense, but they seem to play better and kind of just outscore a team. And that would have been perfect for Washington State finally going on the road if they were home. And this should be a test too, even on this neutral floor. Can they keep shooting it? They've been going at a crazy pace. Yeah. Shooting it okay, but man, they're just putting up a shit ton of shots a game, Washington State. It's just up, down, up, down. They got all those guys from Eastern Washington, of course, and their coach. So They look pretty good. I mean, I get it. I'm off this game. And yeah, I think it's gone a little bit too far here with Iowa. Just not enough defense for me. And 2 teams I want to see a little bit more of.
I agree. All right, we got 2 games left of our marquee game breakdowns, and then we'll get to our favorite plays and then best bets at the end of the show. Let's go to Ohio State and Texas A&M next. We've got Texas A&M. Now, this is a true home game. This is at College Station, 5.5-point home favorites. I like A&M in this spot. I know they've had that loss to UCF, and I think they're still getting penalized for it. I think that's why this line isn't higher. quite honestly, because of that loss to UCF and because Ohio State looked very good against Texas. But remember, this is the first true road game, I believe, this season for Ohio State, because that Texas win was on a neutral. Okay, that was not a true road game for Ohio State when they played the Texas Longhorns. This is, and I think that's a tough environment. Obviously, we know, I think, as with all due respect to Ohio State, I think I like what they did last year when this guy took over, Diebler, as the head coach. And I think, it's the right move that they made him the permanent head coach. But I think when you look at this particular matchup, going on the road, we'll see there's a lot of sophomores and juniors. Bruce Thornton, and it's a younger team. Meanwhile, you've got Texas A&M with just loaded with seniors, led by, of course, Henry Coleman III and the great Wade Taylor, who is just, a walking bucket for this Texas A&M team. I think A&M laying the points for me, 5.5. Like, first true road game for Ohio State, young group. I know they played well against Texas, but this is a different animal, and very high on this A&M group this year. So I like the home favorite here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what to make here. Ohio State, like, I don't think Texas is just okay. I think both teams are, and they get the win there. Last year normally Ohio State had regular fade on the road. They were just awful, period, early on last year. Down the stretch in conference play, they played better on the road. I don't know if that translates like you're talking about. Thornton, really the only guy. Seems like he's been there forever. They have Stewart, Bradshaw, Johnson. Let's see if some of these guys can get going. I kind of leaned to A&M. I didn't bet. I thought it was a little bit too far out here. And so with A&M, I want to see it a little more. There's just some teams when they get out to that 6, not all the time unless I really make money off it, want to lay 6. You know what I mean? Even at home.
All right, final game of our marquee game previews for this Friday. Arizona, Wisconsin. We've got the Wildcats, 4.5-point road favorites, 152.5 the total. Pace war is the first thing I can say about this game. If you like Arizona, you probably like the over. If you like Wisconsin, they've got to try to slow this game down and turn it into a half-court grinder. That's going to be their pathway staying in this game. This is another Peacock game. My goodness. What's it? Peacock bought the fucking half of the schedule on their network tonight or what? My goodness. Peacock streaming for this game as well with Arizona and Wisconsin. So you got the 14th tempo in the country, Arizona, 335th in the country in Wisconsin. So it's a pace war for sure. Arizona is a heck of a defensive team. I think so. I mean, they're 5th in the country in defensive efficiency. When you look at Arizona, as far as both of these teams certainly going to get tested here, there's no question about that. And it is, a home game here for the Badgers. But, Greg Gard's team kind of underachieved last year. They played Montana State. They didn't cover. I took Montana State in that game. They covered the number as big underdogs against Wisconsin. Haven't been thrilled with what I've seen from them. Now, I know Arizona's faced nobody yet, and we're going to find out a lot more about Arizona because they got back-to-back with Wisconsin and Duke coming up here in the next week. So good tests coming up for Tommy Lloyd's team. I think the one thing, too, with Arizona is I'm still looking to see who can step up consistently, helping out Caleb Love from an offensive standpoint. I don't know if they're nearly as good offensively as they've been in the last few years, but I think defensively, they've really looked solid. They've really looked good, and this could be one of his better defensive teams. That might be enough here. I think Wisconsin is down a little bit, and I still think Arizona is top 25 team, probably in the country when it's all said and done. So I think that's actually somewhat cheap on Arizona. I laid the small number here, Arizona. I don't think that Badger home court anymore is one that you have to be fearful of anymore either. So I think Arizona's a decent amount better than Wisconsin. I'll take my chances laying the 4.5 with them. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, we'll see if this Arizona defense is better. Bottom line, they need to be better if they really want to, contend, go to the Final Four, and contend for a national championship. I think this should be a good test for them. Like you talked about, it's so early on, been super easy for them. And see if the other guys around Love can get going. This one was tough. I think Arizona can go in there and win. I think Wisconsin is just gritty, though, here. They kind of want to slow it down. I don't think they want to get up and down. That'd be a mistake. But Klesmit, Kroll, some of these guys have been there a while. To me, it's always too if their shots kind of can drop from three, because it can be ugly if their shots are not going from three. They could get beat down bad here, but at home I lean their way. I think Arizona could win this game. I really just don't want to lay 5 points. It's not enough unless you really love Arizona and what you've seen out of them. I get it, but I'd be off here.
Yeah, we're cheering on Virginia right now. The Wahoos in live action. UVA, we took the +4.5 with them against Villanova. To me, how can you lay 4?
Yeah, that was the only play in that game.
Yeah, and they're up by 9 in the first half. That game's on TNT, by the way. If you're looking for that game, you better have a fucking compass and a guide to find these games this year. Like they're everywhere. Peacock, Netflix, TNT, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, FS2, Fox Main Network, ABC, CBS, NBC, Peacock. You can go. It's just Big Ten Network, ACC Network. I mean, I could go SEC Network. You go on and on. You need it's like you're out in the woods, Connor Mack. You need a compass to find these games, to watch them.
I hate it. I hate having all these fucking streaming things too.
Jeez.
Yes. They have to have all Peacock and all this. And if you get the deal, then they upcharge you. It's like, without you knowing it, you got to stay on top of it. You know what I mean? It's just a fucking hassle. ESPN Plus, you got this, Hulu, Netflix, all this fucking shit.
Yeah. That's right. I have this website where it's actually, thank goodness there's some sites that list every game and every platform and channel and network I need it. Now, I can't just assume I know where every college football game is going to be on. There used to be a time, I know where that college football game is going to be on. Now I have no clue. No, CW network. They never showed shit. Now all of a sudden, CW network, and they brought Tom Brenneman out of
CW,
too.
True TV, they do stuff now.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like I said, you need a compass now to find these games. What network? What streaming service? What platform? Or else you're screwed, or else you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna spend 15 minutes just trying to find where the game is, and that's the issue right now these days. All right, just before we wrap up the show, C-Mac, we'll throw it to you. The games we haven't talked about yet. What are you liking here on this Friday night college basketball slate?
What we haven't talked about, I have the under here in the main game. Under 148, it's dropped here a little bit.
Maine.
I still think it's all right.
Yep.
Yeah, Quinnipiac wants to go quicker, but I think Maine is going to struggle to score. They play a lot slower. So I thought that total was just too high at that number. And I'm on Upstate here, +9.5. Wilmington's better. It's just kind of a shitty spot, I think, for them. They play Kansas next. I don't think they've been too impressive. And Upstate's hung around. And they're smaller. Wilmington's gonna out rebound them. They're bigger, but I think they hang in this game. I think almost double digits was just too many in that one. That was about it. That what, an over if they can score here, Babano, and the line's actually gone down a little bit just because these teams are so bad, but they're so bad defensively, and they've gone up and down. It's Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Old Dominion. And even Eastern Shore with the 13, just because I don't think Old Dominion even should be laying 13 to anybody, even in Maryland, Eastern Shore. So I was looking at that over and then plus the 13. That was about it, I think, that we have left. Yeah, that's it.
There we go. Good stuff. I'll go rapid fire, and I've got a best bet already picked out for the final segment before we wrap things up. I'm on Florida Atlantic, Charleston over in that game. I mean, I cashed an easy over with Florida Atlantic against UCF the other night. Flew way over the total. Plenty of room to spare. It's typical Florida Atlantic. Great offensive team, little shaky on defense, and they play very fast. And Charleston does too. Chris Mack there now, the head coach. So I like that game over the total. I took Temple against BC. I just think Temple's a little bit better than BC. I'm willing to take it around a pick 'em, just to win the game. I wouldn't lay more than 1.5, but Temple was playable there in that game. What else did we like here? I took a little Jaspers +8.5, +9 against Fordham. I know Fordham's the better team, but it's regional rivalry there. I think Manhattan defensively can muck that game enough up. to win that game. I like Furman in the over against Tulane. I'm on Ohio Bobcats. I mean, I don't trust Memphis as double-digit favorites. I took Ohio there, plus 13. I know Ohio's been disappointing, but I still thought coming into the year they'd be one of the better teams in the MAC. I am worried about whether they'll handle the athleticism that Memphis has. They have a big edge there, but I think it's too many points. I'll take my chances with Ohio there. Probably lean to the over there in that game. And then what else? Lean DePaul against Duquesne. Duquesne's kind of starting over. Like Keith Dambrot retired, new coach, a lot of new faces. DePaul's been really good this year so far. So I know laying points with DePaul historically is suicide, but I think this year it's actually okay to do it. There's a solid-looking DePaul team early in the year. UAB and High Point is a very underrated mid-major game tonight. High Point's a good team in that conference, Big South. They're a favorite. UAB's kind of disappointed at times this year, but I think UAB plus the points I would look at. I think you're getting a discount now with them. And look, for High Point, I think it's a close game. Can they win it? Sure. Can they win it by multiple possessions? I don't know about that. I lean UAB. I think that game is potential over as well, because you're definitely going to see a lot of pace there with UAB and High Point. And then West Georgia, South Florida, I like the over as well. Lehigh, just in a sleepy spot against UCLA, maybe a little split with first half and full game there. It's a sleepy spot for UCLA, in my opinion. Gonzaga could destroy Lowell, because Gonzaga's off, the performance their last game, not going to be happy about it. So they could they could hang a big number there. And maybe a little LIU, Long Island against Cal Baptist. Long Island, won at Air Force. They're, I think, an improved team this year. I think getting 15.5, 16 with them's a decent bet. So we'll go in that direction. And I like North Alabama against Samford. Samford's been pretty good the last couple of years. Excellent offensive team, buckyball with that offense of theirs. But the problem is, I think North Alabama's a really solid team. They can match Samford's offense. And in fact, if you ask me who do I trust more defensively, I think I trust North Alabama. I saw Samford earlier this week. They couldn't stop anything, and they ended up losing a high-scoring affair, I believe it was, to Cornell, if I'm not mistaken. But Samford, I haven't been impressed defensively. I like the way North Alabama's played, so I like North Alabama. Slight home dog against Samford in that game. So there we go. That's pretty much it. A lot of bets, as usual, from yours truly here for this Friday night. All right, best bets to wrap up the show. C-Mac, what do you like most for best bet?
That under, it's still fine. Maine, Quinnipiac. Get under 146.5. I think are still out there. Goes under.
There you go. Maine, Quinnipiac, under 140. There's still 146.5 still out there for that game for Connor Mack with his Friday best bet. My best bet for this one. Let's go to the that game's about to start. There might be people tuning in later. Try to give them a game that doesn't start. Let's give them Ohio plus 13 against Memphis. Memphis is so flighty. I wouldn't even be totally shocked if Memphis loses this game, quite honestly. I don't think they will, but 13, Ohio, a quality group. And this is the kind of spot Memphis struggles in historically under Penny. So give me the Ohio Bobcats plus 13 against Memphis. And we'll roll with that for my best for this Friday slate. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We want to name everyone that's joined us here. Nick Olvento, Justin McKelvey, Justin McElvey, I should say, get the pronunciation right. Chad Blatt, Trans Canada. Picks from Dave Rogers. Good to see you in the chat. Yeah, Dawson's Creek used to be on CW, and now so are college football games. As well, apparently. But yeah, that's going back in time for sure. Shout out to everyone.
The Wayans brothers used to be on the CW, I think. Or the WB. Maybe that was the WB. I'm getting my things messed up.
Yeah, Nick, TCU was going to be best bet, but it's starting in like 10 minutes. I wanted to, in case people are tuning in late, the best bets, at least the Ohio-Memphis game is, but I like Ohio a lot too. But yeah, TCU is definitely a best bet candidate for me on this Friday slate. But shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. Remember, we're here every Friday with the college basketball Hitting the Books show until the end of December, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Then we'll expand to more shows throughout the week. And, of course, college football, still a lot of shows left, 3 weeks of the regular season, national championship, conference championship weekend, all the bowl games. We'll do bowl preview shows in December like we do every year for college football on Hitting the Books every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you join us Monday for another edition of the college football version of Hitting the Books. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll be back with you Monday for the college football version of Hitting the Books. Until then, class dismissed.